Welcome to our nocturnal laboratory of gentle discoveries. Here at Dreamtime Science, we transform complex concepts into lullabies for the curious mind. You know what's fascinating? I've been thinking about how, deep down, life isn't just about surviving alone. It's about working together in ways that feel almost like quiet teamwork all around us. There's something remarkable about how cooperation shapes everything from tiny cells to entire ecosystems. And I can't wait to share some surprising stories about why life truly thrives when it chooses to join forces. Should these dreamy explorations accompany your journey to sleep, a gentle like or subscription would be deeply appreciated. What questions about our universe keep you wonderfully curious? Let's prepare for tonight's journey. Find your most comfortable position, let tension float away from your body, and take 3 slow, peaceful breaths. In the quiet hush of night, when the world outside grows dim and the mind turns inward, let us begin a gentle voyage, a journey through the hidden architecture of life and the dreams we have spun from it. Tonight, we wander the borderlands where science and story blend, where the whisper of a cell's division echoes in the halls of starships, and the pulse of a communal heart animates both the rainforests of Pandora and the decks of the Starship Enterprise. Here, in this liminal space between what is and what might be, we will explore the dance of unity, cooperation in all its living, breathing forms. Let us begin not with the future, but with the ancient and the intimate. Consider the single cell adrift in some primordial sea, perhaps 4 billion years ago. Alone, it survives, but it is limited. It must do everything itself: gather nutrients, defend against danger, replicate its parts, repair its injuries. Its world is a world of boundaries and barriers, each cell an island entire unto itself. Yet even in those distant days, there was a quiet yearning for something more. For as life multiplied, as cells divided and diversified, a new possibility emerged: the chance to come together, to share, to form alliances. It was not long, in the grand sweep of time, before the world's oceans teemed with communities of cells, colonies, aggregates, precursors to the intricate multicellular forms that would one day walk, swim, and fly across the planet. This, then, is the first truth. Life, at its root, is a story of cooperation. The great leap from single cell to multicellular organism was not a triumph of the lone survivor, but a collective victory, a merger of individuals who specialized, communicated, and surrendered a measure of autonomy for the promise of something greater than themselves. Within your own body, trillions of cells labor in concert. Some ferry oxygen, others send electrical whispers through nerves, still others stand sentry against invaders. None survives long alone, each owes its existence to the rest. Yet in the stories we tell ourselves, especially in the myths of modern culture, a different narrative often holds sway. We speak of rugged individualism, lone pioneers, the solitary genius inventing and enduring against all odds. The myth of self-reliance is seductive, a beacon of autonomy, the dream that any one of us might carve a place in the wilderness by sheer force of will. But nature and history suggest otherwise. The world we inhabit is a tapestry woven by countless hands, seen and unseen. Science fiction, that great mirror for our hopes and fears, reflects both these currents. Some tales are paeans to the solitary hero, the explorer facing the void. But others, perhaps deeper and more enduring, reveal a subtler, truer note, the necessity and the beauty of cooperation. Let your mind drift now to the luscious, bioluminescent wilds of Pandora, the world brought to life in James Cameron's Avatar. Here, the Na'vi people live not in isolation, but as an integral part of a vast, living network. They speak of Ewa, the planetary consciousness, the sum of all living things, interconnected in a web that pulses with shared memory and purpose. when the Navi bond with the creatures of their world, when they link to the sacred tree of souls, they are not merely cooperating in the sense of working together, they are participating in a communion, a literal and spiritual merging with the rest of life. This vision, drawn with imagination and artistry, has deep roots in the natural sciences. In forests on our own Earth, the so-called wood wide web of fungal mycelium links the roots of trees, allowing them to share nutrients and information. An ancient tree, battered by lightning or drought, may be nursed by its neighbours, who send sugars and water through these hidden conduits. Saplings, shaded and frail, are fed by the elders, the strength of the many sustaining the few. Even among animals, alliances abound. Wolves hunt in packs, ants build cities. Dolphins form pods that defend against sharks and care for the sick. The myth of the solitary survivor grows thin under such scrutiny. Life, in its myriad forms, is a choreography of mutual aid. The science fiction utopia, then, is not an idle fantasy, but a projection of nature's own logic into the imagined future. On the starship Enterprise, as it sails among the stars in Star Trek, a crew of diverse beings, human and alien, scientist and engineer, officer and civilian, must rely on one another absolutely. The ship is sustained not by the brilliance of one, but by the harmony of many. Each episode is a meditation on trust, empathy, and the difficult art of understanding difference. There is no survival in the void without cooperation. This is not merely an ideal, it is an operational necessity. Why then do we cling so tightly to the story of the self-made hero? Perhaps because it is simpler, the arc of a single life easier to grasp than the tangled skeins of collective effort. Yet when we look closer at the making of any true achievement, a moon landing, a vaccine, a work of art, we find not a solitary figure, but a multitude. Behind every astronaut is a legion of engineers. Behind every discovery, an army of teachers, colleagues, rivals, and friends. Progress is a communal act. Consider for a moment the curious phenomenon of quorum sensing among bacteria. These minuscule beings, often imagined as solitary invaders, actually communicate by releasing chemical signals into their environment, measuring the density of their population. Only when a critical threshold is reached do they act in concert, lighting up, producing toxins, or forming biofilms. A single bacterium is powerless. Together they become formidable, capable of changing their world. Nature, at every scale, is an experiment in unity. To dream of utopia, then, is to dream of a world in which our innate capacity for cooperation is fully realized. The societies of Star Trek and Avatar are not perfect. They face conflict, misunderstanding, and loss. Yet they are bound together by something rare and precious, a recognition that the good of the one is inseparable from the good of the whole. The Federation of Planets, with its charter of mutual aid and non-interference, is a vision of what might be possible if we embraced, rather than resisted, our interdependence. To the skeptic, this may appear naive. After all, history is replete with struggle and competition. The strong flourish, the weak recede. Yet even here, the narrative is incomplete. The evolution of cooperation is not a denial of conflict, but its transformation. Among social animals, competition is regulated by rules, rituals, and reconciliations. Chimpanzees resolve disputes with gestures of peace. Elephants mourn their dead and nurture orphaned calves. Even in the rough-and-tumble world of the marketplace, economies flourish not by the unbridled pursuit of self-interest, but by the trust that allows contracts to be honored, goods to be exchanged, and debts to be repaid. We are, in our very bones, creatures of the collective. The myth of self-reliance is not wholly false. Initiative, resilience, and courage are real and necessary, but these are amplified, not diminished, when embedded in a community. The lone genius is rare. The network of minds collaborating and correcting is the engine of progress. Let us linger for a while in the gentle glow of these utopian visions. What is it, truly, that makes the societies of Star Trek and Avatar so alluring? Perhaps it is their refusal to accept the boundaries we so often erect between self and other, human and alien, mind and world. In these imagined futures, empathy is not an afterthought, but a guiding principle. The crew of the Enterprise does not conquer or exploit the planets they visit. They seek to learn, to understand, to share. The Na'vi do not dominate Pandora. They belong to it, as much as the trees and the rivers. These are not just stories, but aspirations, a call to remember our origins and to imagine our destiny. The science of cooperation, from the earliest cells to the sprawling networks of civilization, reveals a persistent pattern. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Each individual, whether cell or person, finds its fullest expression in relation to others. We are, all of us, participants in the dance of unity, and yet the pull of the opposite myth remains strong. The image of the lone pioneer carving a path through the wilderness holds a certain romance. In the stories of the American West, in the tales of explorers and inventors, we find echoes of a deeper longing for autonomy, for freedom, for the power to shape one's own fate. There is truth in this too. The urge to strike out alone, to test the limits of self, is a part of the human spirit. But even here, the journey is never truly solitary. The pioneer relies on the tools and knowledge of those who came before, the explorer on the maps and provisions supplied by others. Even the hermit, withdrawing to the forest, carries with them the language, customs, and memories of a community. In the tapestry of life, the threads of self and society are inseparable. The utopias of fiction remind us not of what is easy, but of what is possible. They offer a model, not of perfection, but of aspiration. To cooperate is not to surrender individuality, but to enrich it, not to erase difference, but to weave it into a more resilient whole. As you drift towards sleep, let your mind wander through these worlds, both real and imagined, where unity is not a weakness, but a strength. Picture the mycelial threads beneath the forest floor, the neural networks firing in tandem, the starship's crew gathered in the gentle hum of warp drive. Each is a testament to the enduring power of connection. And so the question lingers in the quiet: what more might we become if we learned to trust in the dance of unity? The answer lies not in the isolation of the self, but in the unfolding story of the many. In the next silence, another layer of this story will unfurl, as we look more deeply into the strategies and patterns by which life, across scales, achieves its improbable cohesion. The night is long, and the dance continues. Out in the hush of a spring meadow, where wildflowers nod on slender stems and the air vibrates with the faint hum of hidden wings, nature murmurs a story of silent bargains and ancient pacts. Here, in the shifting mosaic of sunlight and shadow, the dance of cooperation plays out with an elegance so profound that it is easy to miss if one looks only with hurried eyes. Yet, beneath the surface, every leaf, every fleeting insect, every breath of wind is threaded with connections, fragile and resilient, self-serving and selfless, all at once. Let us slow our thoughts to the pace of opening petals and peer more closely at this intricate tango. Consider first the gentle ballet between bees and flowers, a partnership as old as the first blossoms, and yet one that is renewed each day with every sunrise. A bee, dusted in yellow pollen, moves from corolla to corolla, sipping nectar, her tongue unfurling to probe the deep wells of sweetness hidden within. The flower, for its part, offers up this sugary tribute not out of kindness but necessity. Nectar is costly to produce, siphoning precious energy that might otherwise be used for growth or defense. Why, then, does the flower expend such effort? The answer lies in the delicate calculus of mutualism. The bee, in her quest for food, unwittingly carries the flower's pollen to new destinations, allowing for cross-pollination and genetic diversity. Each party receives something vital, a meal for the bee, a future for the flower. Yet even in this apparent harmony, the shadows of conflict linger. Bees, ever efficient, may learn to pierce the base of a flower and rob nectar without touching the pollen, sidestepping their role as pollinators. Some flowers, in turn, have evolved to recognize and deter such freeloaders, their petals closing tightly or their nectar placed just out of easy reach. The partnership is less a simple alliance, more a subtle negotiation, shifting with each generation, each season. Cooperation here is not static. It is a living contract, rewritten moment by moment, with the threat of betrayal always near. Elsewhere on Earth, the terms of cooperation are struck with different currencies. Beneath the forest floor, in the rich, dark tapestry of soil, an even older alliance persists. Here, the roots of trees thread themselves through a network of fine fungal filaments known as mycorrhizae. The fungus, lacking chlorophyll, cannot conjure sugar from sunlight, as plants do. Instead, it reaches with its hyphae into minuscule crevices, scavenging phosphorus, nitrogen, and rare minerals from the stubborn earth. These nutrients, precious and hard-won, are traded for sugars manufactured by the tree above. This subterranean exchange is not a simple barter between two partners. It is a bustling marketplace, with trees and fungi connected in vast interwoven webs. Recent research has revealed that these fungal networks, sometimes called the wood wide web, allow not only the exchange of nutrients, but also the transfer of chemical signals, warnings of pest attacks, even the sharing of resources between younger and older trees. A dying tree may, in its waning days, pass on surplus sugars to its neighbors via fungal intermediaries, a quiet act of legacy. Yet, here too, the balance is delicate. Some fungi become greedy, siphoning off more than they provide, tilting the relationship toward parasitism. Some trees, sensing a poor bargain, may sever connections or favor more generous partners. What looks, from above, like a stately, solitary forest is, below the soil, a shifting landscape of alliances, rivalries, and negotiations. Above ground, cooperation takes on new forms, visible in the choreography of animal societies. Picture a pack of wolves moving as one through a snowy wilderness. Their hunt is a marvel of coordination. Some wolves fan out to flush prey into the open, others wait in ambush, the entire group communicating through subtle shifts in posture, glances, and almost imperceptible sounds. The spoils are shared, though not equally. The alpha pair claims the choicest cuts, while subordinate members receive what remains. For the pack, cooperation is not merely a matter of survival, but of structure and stability. Lone wolves, despite their romantic reputation, rarely thrive. It is the pack that endures, generation after generation. Yet, this unity is not without tension. Each wolf is both an individual and a member of the collective, balancing self-interest with the needs of the group. Dominance hierarchies are enforced through displays and skirmishes. Alliances are forged and broken. If food is scarce, the bonds of cooperation may fray. In times of plenty, they are renewed. The social contract of the pack is written in the language of kinship and necessity, always provisional, always subject to change. Among the more enigmatic creatures of the deep, the cephalopods, cooperation emerges in unlikely guises. Octopuses, typically solitary, have been observed engaging in collaborative hunting with fish. In the coral reefs of Indonesia, a veined octopus and a group of groupers might join forces. The octopus flushes prey from crevices, the fish wait to snatch the fugitives. Sometimes, when the octopus grows impatient with a sluggish fish partner, it delivers a swift corrective punch, a reminder that even in cooperation, competition simmers beneath the surface. Mutualisms are not limited to such charismatic actors. In the African savanna, oxpecker birds perch on the backs of rhinoceroses and buffaloes, delicately plucking ticks and parasites from their leathery hides. The birds receive a steady diet, the mammals relief from irritation. Yet studies have shown that oxpeckers sometimes feed on the wounds they create, prolonging the discomfort of their hosts. The line between helpfulness and harm blurs, and what was once seen as a model of mutual benefit reveals itself to be more ambiguous, shaped by the pressures of circumstance and opportunity. At times, cooperation is forced into being by the sheer necessity of survival, as seen in the world of microbes. Within our own bodies, trillions of bacteria form complex consortia, breaking down food, synthesizing vitamins, training the immune system. These microbial communities are in constant flux, their members engaging in chemical dialogues, sharing genes, sometimes suppressing or excluding rivals. The gut, for all its apparent order, is a battleground and a marketplace, a place where cooperation and competition are indistinguishable from one another. What then sustains these alliances? What prevents a world built on cooperation from collapsing into chaos or exploitation? Evolution offers some answers, though they are seldom simple. Theories of kin selection suggest that altruism is more likely to flourish among close relatives, where helping another is, in a sense, helping oneself. Reciprocal altruism, a subtler mechanism, allows for the emergence of cooperation among unrelated individuals, so long as favors are repaid and cheaters are punished or excluded. In vampire bats, for example, individuals who share their blood meals with hungry roostmates are more likely to receive help when they themselves are in need. Memory and recognition, rare among non-human animals, become tools for maintaining trust. But the edifice of cooperation is always at risk. Cheaters, those who take without giving, who exploit the system for personal gain, are an ever-present threat. In the world of social insects, such as ants or bees, the colony is vulnerable to selfish individuals who shirk their duties or attempt to reproduce at the expense of the group. Elaborate policing mechanisms have evolved. Worker ants may destroy the eggs laid by others, enforcing the queen's primacy. Bees may expel or kill workers that disrupt the hive's harmony. Punishment and reward, exclusion and inclusion are woven into the fabric of collective life. Even among humans, whose societies are built on layers of cooperation, families, tribes, nations, the same tensions persist. Social norms, laws and institutions arise to encourage pro-social behavior and discourage freeloading. Yet these systems are never perfect. Corruption, deceit, and conflict are perennial features of the human story. The balance between individual and collective, between self and other, is a line walked daily, sometimes with grace, sometimes with stumbling. As we peer deeper into the mechanisms of mutualism, the boundaries between cooperation and conflict, between self-interest and generosity, begin to blur. In the realm of cleaner fish and their clients on the coral reef, for example, the dance is performed with exquisite care. Cleaner wrasses set up stations where larger fish queue to have their parasites removed. The wrasses could easily cheat, nipping at the client's healthy tissue for a tastier morsel, but reputation matters. Clients remember past slights and may avoid unreliable cleaners, spreading the word across the reef. The threat of lost business enforces good behavior, and a complex, almost economic game unfolds beneath the waves. Yet, in all these examples from soil to sky, from microbe to mammal, cooperation remains a phenomenon, both intricate and precarious. It is sculpted by evolutionary pressures, maintained by memory and recognition, threatened by exploitation and collapse. The natural world does not guarantee fairness or stability. It offers only the possibility of benefit, balanced always on the edge of risk. Scientific understanding of these systems is itself a work in progress, shaped by the tools and perspectives of each generation. Early naturalists often saw nature as a battleground of relentless competition, struggle, tooth and claw. Later, as the subtleties of mutualism came to light, a more nuanced picture emerged. Yet each discovery reveals new complexities. Partnerships that seem harmonious on the surface are, upon closer inspection, laced with conflict and negotiation. What appears as selflessness may conceal deeper layers of self-interest. What seems exploitative may, in time, yield unexpected benefits. Limits to our comprehension endure, not merely because the systems are complex, but because they are dynamic. Relationships shift with the seasons, with climate, with the unpredictable tides of chance. A drought may strain a partnership to breaking, a sudden abundance may foster new forms of generosity. Evolution does not plan ahead, nor does it guarantee permanence. The contracts of mutualism are written in living ink, always subject to revision. As the dusk deepens over the meadow and the hum of bees fades into memory, the intricate tango of cooperation continues, unseen but unceasing. In every corner of the living world, alliances form, falter, and are reforged. The story of cooperation is not one of simple harmony, but of tension held in balance, of needs and desires interwoven like the roots and mycelia beneath our feet. Where this dance will lead, what new forms it might take, and how its fragile steps are shaped by the ever-changing environment, these are questions that linger, like the last golden light on the horizon, inviting us onward into the shadowed forest of deeper mysteries. Beneath the hush of dusk in a South African savanna, a cluster of pied babblers perches among the low-thorned branches of an acacia. Their plumage, soft, flecked, unremarkable, betrays nothing of the intricate, invisible threads that bind their social world. For centuries, such scenes passed largely unnoticed, brushed over as mere background to more solitary dramas of predator and prey. Yet, with the slow, patient eye of science, a new kind of attention took root, a gaze trained not on the single actor, but on the choreography of the group, not on the solitary struggle, but on the subtle, ceaseless dance of cooperation. To truly understand this dance, to peer beneath its surface and trace its patterns, humanity has needed to assemble an ever-evolving toolkit, an arsenal of methods both humble and grand, both ancient and utterly new. The quiet art of observation, the precision of genetic sequencing, the cleverness of experimental design, each has played a part, each illuminating a facet of nature's most enigmatic alliances. Now, as dusk deepens, let us walk softly into the field and the laboratory, tracing the steps by which scientists have learned to dissect the dance of cooperation. Long before the gleam of digital recorders or the whir of drones, the first tool was the attentive eye. The naturalist, notebook in hand, would sit for hours, sometimes days, letting the rhythms of the wild wash over them. Jane Goodall crouched in the leafy shadows of Gombe, pencil poised as she watched the chimpanzees. John Crook hunched beneath the Himalayan sun, noting the subtle signals of cooperative breeding among babblers. Their observations were painstakingly slow, each data point won through patience and humility, a respect for the creatures whose lives they sought to understand. Through these early forays, certain patterns began to emerge. In some species, individuals seemed to work together with a purpose that transcended their own immediate gain. In the Australian outback, groups of fairy wrens would band together to feed a single nest's brood, even when some of the helpers were not the parents. On the African plains, meerkat sentinels stood tall, scanning for danger while their kin foraged in safety. Were these acts of kindness, or merely calculated exchanges? The question was as philosophical as it was procedural, and answering it demanded more than the eye. It required experiments. Here, the stage shifted from passive watching to active intervention. Scientists constructed clever manipulations designed to tease apart cause and effect. In the world of cooperative breeding, one classic experiment involved the removal of certain group members to see how the behavior of the remaining birds would change. For example, researchers studying Seychelles warblers would gently remove some helpers from the group, then observe the amount of food brought to the nestlings. If the parents increased their effort to compensate, or if the nestlings suffered, this provided a window into the true value of cooperation. Sometimes the dance of cooperation is so subtle that it hides in plain sight, its steps too faint for even the most diligent observer. In these moments, scientists have turned to technology, a silent partner capable of capturing what the eye alone cannot. Tiny radio transmitters, now scarcely larger than a sunflower seed, are affixed to the legs of birds or the fur of mammals. With each movement, each foray and return, a digital signature is logged and mapped, painting a portrait of social networks as intricate as any city's web of streets. Night vision cameras, set at the burrow entrances of naked mole rats, reveal midnight shifts of digging and pup tending, each act catalogued and time-stamped. But as observation becomes ever more precise, so too does the need to unravel the motives behind these acts. Are helpers truly altruistic, or do they gain hidden benefits? Here, the laboratory, with its power to control and manipulate, becomes a crucial stage. In experiments with cooperative cichlid fish, for instance, researchers construct artificial communities in aquaria, varying the relatedness of individuals or the presence of predators. By changing these variables and recording the resulting behaviors, who helps, who cheats, who punishes, the underlying rules of cooperation begin to clarify, like a pattern emerging from mist. One of the most elegant tools in this arsenal is the playback experiment. In the field, a scientist might record the alarm calls of a sentinel bird, then play these calls back to a group and observe their reactions. Do they heed the warning and flee, or do they ignore it? By altering the context, sometimes using calls from familiar group members, sometimes from outsiders, researchers can probe the rules of trust and reciprocity that underlie group living. In meerkats, such experiments have revealed that sentinels gain social prestige from their vigilance, winning future favors and support, a subtle currency in the economy of the group. Yet even as these methods grow more sophisticated, a deeper layer remains, hidden within the very blood and bone of the animals themselves. Here, the molecular revolution has provided a lens of unprecedented power. With the rise of genetic sequencing, it has become possible to peer into the genome, to measure relatedness with mathematical precision. Where once it was assumed that all helpers in a bird's nest were siblings or offspring, DNA fingerprinting revealed a more complex reality. In many cases, helpers were cousins, half-siblings, or even unrelated. This discovery forced a reconsideration of the motives for cooperation, suggesting that kinship alone could not explain the full tapestry of helping behavior. The genetic tools do more than just assign parentage. They allow scientists to track the inheritance of particular traits, to map the genetic signatures of cooperation across generations. In the complex societies of ants and bees, whole genome sequencing has been used to identify genes linked to worker behavior, to the production of pheromones, to the suppression of selfishness. In naked mole rats, genetic studies have illuminated how near-clonal relatedness underpins their extraordinary levels of cooperation, driving a social system more akin to a single superorganism than a collection of individuals. But genes are only part of the story. The environment, the social context, the past experiences of each animal, these too shape the dance. To untangle these threads, scientists have turned to long-term studies, following the same individuals year after year, tracking the ripples of one act of cooperation as they spread through a group across seasons and generations. In the Amboseli Baboon Research Project, researchers have watched as alliances form and dissolve, as acts of grooming and support in one year echo into the next, shaping dominance hierarchies and reproductive success. The tools for such studies are as varied as the questions themselves. Behavioral ethograms, systematic catalogues of every action, from grooming to aggression, are painstakingly compiled, often with the aid of handheld computers or digital recorders. Social network analysis, borrowed from mathematics and sociology, is employed to map the web of connections within a troop or colony, revealing unexpected clusters and bridges, the hidden architecture of cooperation. In recent years, the marriage of technology and data science has opened still more doors. Machine learning algorithms, trained on thousands of hours of video, can now detect and classify behaviors with a speed and accuracy that surpasses even the keenest human observer. Drones, hovering quietly overhead, capture the movement of entire flocks or herds, tracing their collective responses to threats and opportunities. In the forests of Asia, camera traps reveal the secret gatherings of rare primates, their nocturnal meetings no longer lost to darkness. But technology alone cannot answer the deepest questions. For every algorithm, every genetic sequence, there is the quiet art of interpretation, the search for meaning amid the data. Scientists return again and again to the central challenge, discerning intention, inferring motivation, untangling selfishness from true altruism. To meet this challenge, the field has borrowed from philosophy and psychology, designing experiments that probe the minds of animals as much as their bodies. One celebrated example lies among the primates, our closest kin. In a series of ingenious trials, researchers have presented chimpanzees and capuchin monkeys with choices: pull a lever to deliver food to themselves alone or to themselves and a neighbor. Do they show a preference for generosity? Under what circumstances do they help another, even at no immediate gain? The answers are nuanced. In some cases, primates display remarkable empathy, going out of their way to assist others, especially when previous favors have been exchanged or when the recipient is a close ally. In other cases, selfishness prevails, the calculus of cooperation always sensitive to context, history, and relationship. To probe even deeper, scientists have employed the mirror test and the token exchange. In the mirror test, an animal is marked with a spot of paint and shown its reflection. Does it recognize itself or mistake the image for another? Self-recognition is a proxy for theory of mind, the ability to attribute mental states to oneself and others, a foundation for complex cooperation. Only a handful of species pass this test, among them chimpanzees, dolphins, elephants, and magpies. The token exchange, meanwhile, assesses the capacity for delayed reciprocity. Will an animal give up a token now in the expectation of a future reward? Such experiments reveal the psychological underpinnings of cooperation, the cognitive scaffolding upon which social life is built. Yet within all these tools, be they genetic, technological, observational, or experimental, lies a common thread: the quest to see the world as the animals themselves do, to understand cooperation not as a mere tally of acts, but as a living, breathing system shaped by evolution, ecology, and the unique history of each group. It is a quest marked by humility, for the animals' motives may never be fully knowable, their inner worlds forever partly opaque. But with each new tool, each clever experiment, the curtain lifts a little higher, the dance becomes a little clearer. As the night deepens and the babblers settle into sleep, the scientist's work continues, quiet, patient, ever watchful. The data from the day's observations is logged. The gentle beep of radio transmitters echoes in the darkness. The first runs of genetic sequences begin to unfurl across computer screens. Out in the field, a network of eyes, human and electronic, keeps vigil, recording the subtle dramas of the night. Somewhere, a young meerkat takes its first turn as a sentinel, scanning the moonlit plain. A capuchin monkey, high in the canopy, reaches to help a companion across a gap. The dance of cooperation, ancient and ceaseless, continues, each step a testament to the power of togetherness, each act a clue to the mysteries that science, with all its tools, still strives to comprehend. With each turn of the wheel, each new technology, each refined experiment, the picture grows sharper, yet the mystery deepens. The tools may change, and the questions may evolve, but the heart of the inquiry remains. What binds the many into one? What prompts a creature to help another, to share, to risk, to trust? In the gentle hush before dawn, as data flows and questions linger, the next steps beckon. Beyond the tools, beyond the field, toward the shifting, shimmering future of our understanding. As dusk falls and the quiet world hushes its many voices, a profound impression lingers. Like the fading echo of a symphony, the universe is a stage for unending collaboration. Everywhere from the pulsing heart of a single cell to the sprawling complexity of ecosystems, the story of life is choreographed through cooperation. But what does this universal ballet mean for us, the self-aware creatures who gaze out at the cosmos and inward at our own tangled thoughts? Tonight, let us drift deeper into the gentle tides of this question, feeling the weight and wonder of what it means to live as one thread in the grand tapestry of togetherness. The first stirrings of cooperation in living things were not born of conscious intent or benevolence. Rather, they were written in the language of molecules and chance, shaped by the slow hand of evolution. Yet, as eons passed, these initial pacts, cells agreeing to share space, genes learning to coexist, became the scaffolds for ever greater symphonies of collaboration. Multicellular organisms emerged, their bodies a parliament of trillions of cells, each obeying the quiet laws of mutual restraint and shared purpose. These cellular congresses gave rise to animals, plants, fungi, and in time to creatures who could ponder their own existence. In humanity, the echoes of this ancient concord resound still. Our bodies are federations, their parts negotiating and cooperating with exquisite precision. Even our minds, with their swirling thoughts and shifting moods, are the products of countless neurons, each communicating, each contributing to the whole. Yet our cooperation transcends the boundaries of flesh. We are the species that builds civilizations, who forms alliances, who dreams of unity on a planetary scale. To see the world through the lens of biological cooperation is to realize that our social instincts are not cultural accidents, but the flowering of a heritage as old as life itself. The urge to belong, to share, to nurture and be nurtured is written in the very code of our being. It is a force that can be shaped by custom and cognition, but whose roots reach downward into the loam of our evolution. Consider for a moment the vast networks of mycorrhizal fungi beneath the forest floor, so-called wood-wide webs. These living filaments stitch together the roots of trees, transporting nutrients and information. A beech tree, shaded and stunted, may receive a silent tithe of sugars from its sunlit neighbors ferried along these fungal highways, while in return it might send signals of distress or warning, an invisible semaphore flickering beneath the soil. Here, cooperation is neither sentimental nor naive. It is pragmatic, robust, and astonishingly effective. The survival and flourishing of the forest depend on these exchanges, these acts of reciprocal generosity and communication. What then do such examples whisper to us as we ponder our own tangled societies? It is tempting to imagine that human cooperation is unique, a dazzling anomaly among the competitive struggles of nature. But in truth, we are part of a continuum. The same logic that binds ant colonies and coral reefs, that organizes the immune system and the beehive, pulses within our towns, our families, our global networks. Yet, our cooperation is not simply the mimicry of instinct. Unlike fungi or ants, we are burdened and blessed with the capacity for reflection, for ethics, for conscious choice. We can weigh the needs of the group against our own desires, and we can imagine futures shaped by trust, empathy, or betrayal. In our hands, the ancient algorithms of cooperation become questions of meaning. How shall we live together? What do we owe to one another? How can we balance our individuality with the call to community? The answers are neither simple nor static. They shift with the tides of circumstance, with the changing winds of culture and necessity. But biology offers us a set of parables, a silent counsel whispered from the roots of the tree of life. It shows us that cooperation is not the negation of individuality, but its context and support. In the dance of life, the soloist shines brightest against the backdrop of the ensemble. The cell that refuses to heed the needs of its neighbors, a cancer cell, may seize short-term advantage, but in the end it undermines the very body that sustains it. So too in human affairs. The pursuit of individual gain at the expense of the collective can yield brief triumphs, but over time it erodes the foundations of trust, flourishing, and peace. The most enduring civilizations, the most resilient communities, are those that manage to harmonize the needs of the one and the many, to foster creativity without chaos, cohesion without conformity. Yet the balance is delicate. Too much emphasis on the group can suffocate innovation, stifle dissent, and breed stagnation. Too little, and we risk fragmentation, isolation, and the collapse of shared purpose. This tension, this oscillation between self and society, is a rhythm that echoes through the biological world, manifesting in the shifting alliances of animal groups, the flexible boundaries of microbial consortia, and the ever-evolving norms of human cultures. Philosophers have long pondered the mystery of why life, which could simply compete, so often chooses to cooperate. Is it merely a matter of genetic advantage, a clever trick to pass along more copies of one's genes, or is there something deeper, a hidden logic, a subtle beauty in the act of joining forces? The answer, perhaps, is both. Cooperation can be explained by natural selection, by the mathematics of game theory and the calculus of inclusive fitness. Yet it also produces emergent wonders that cannot be reduced to mere arithmetic. When individual fireflies synchronize their flashes, the result is a luminous chorus rippling across the night. When humans come together to build a cathedral, compose a symphony, or send a spacecraft to the stars, the product is not simply the sum of its parts, but something wholly new, a manifestation of the creative potential that arises only through connection. At every scale, from the microbial to the cosmic, cooperation is a wellspring of novelty, complexity, and possibility. This insight has profound implications for the challenges we face as a species. In an age of global interconnection, we confront problems, climate change, pandemics, poverty, conflict, whose solutions demand unprecedented levels of coordination and trust. The lessons of biology remind us that such cooperation is possible but not inevitable. It requires structures that reward reciprocity, norms that discourage exploitation, and a shared sense of belonging that can bridge difference and distance. Our evolutionary inheritance gives us the tools, but not the blueprint. It is up to us to design the institutions, tell the stories, and cultivate the virtues that can sustain cooperation on the scales demanded by modern life. We must learn to see ourselves not only as individuals, but as participants in a larger dance, a choreography that links us to one another, to other species, and to the living earth itself. The philosophy of cooperation invites us to revise our sense of self. The boundaries between I and we, between self and other, are not as rigid as they seem. The microbiome within our guts, the viral relics in our DNA, the memories and patterns we inherit from our cultures, all blur the edges of individuality. We are mosaics, assemblages, symphonies in flesh and thought. To recognize this is not to lose our uniqueness, but to situate it within a wider, richer context. Even the pursuit of wisdom itself is a collaborative act. Every idea, every insight, is a node in a network, a spark passed from mind to mind across generations. Language, culture, science, These are collective enterprises, the fruit of countless contributions, revisions, and conversations. When we teach, we participate in the ancient relay of knowledge. When we listen, we become part of the unbroken chain that stretches back to the dawn of speech and forward into futures we can scarcely imagine. And yet, cooperation is not without its shadows. The same forces that enable trust also create the possibility for betrayal, for exploitation, for the tragedy of the commons. The biological world is full of cheaters, organisms that reap the benefits of others' labor without paying the cost. In human affairs, too, the temptation to free ride, to hoard or deceive, is ever present. The dance of cooperation is thus always entwined with vigilance, negotiation, and the continual repair of trust. In response, life has evolved a dazzling array of mechanisms to detect and punish cheaters, to foster fairness and reciprocity. From the gossip that polices reputations in human tribes, to the immune systems that weed out rogue cells, to the molecular signals that enforce harmony among symbiotic partners, the maintenance of cooperation is an art as subtle as its creation. Its success depends on feedback, on memory, and on the continual renewal of mutual benefit. If there is a lesson in this, perhaps it is one of humility and hope. We are not the inventors of cooperation, but its inheritors and stewards. We stand on the shoulders of uncountable ancestors, cellular, animal, human, who discovered again and again the power of coming together. Our task is to honor that legacy, to extend and refine it, to find new ways of weaving our fates together in the face of new challenges. There is a quiet mystery at the heart of all this, a question that science can illuminate but not exhaust. Why does life so often choose the path of togetherness? Why do atoms join to form molecules, molecules to form cells, cells to form bodies, bodies to form societies? Is it simply that cooperation works, that it is the surest route to survival and flourishing? Or is there, hidden within the deep logic of the universe, a kind of yearning, a drive toward complexity, toward beauty, toward communion? Perhaps it is both. Perhaps the cosmos, in its silent unfolding, delights in the music of many voices joined as one. In the intricate assembly of a beehive, in the branching coral, in the whispered conversations of neurons, in the laughter of children and the clasp of hands, there is a pattern that repeats, a motif that weaves through matter and mind. To contemplate this pattern is to feel a sense of kinship with all life, with the earth, with the stars themselves. For as the atoms that compose our bodies were forged in ancient suns, so too the impulse to connect, to cooperate, to create, is an inheritance older than memory. We are, in every sense, participants in the universal ballet, a dance whose steps we learn anew with each generation, whose music is written in the language of science, history, and hope. As the night deepens, let these thoughts settle softly, like dust motes in a shaft of light. We are, and always have been, more than isolated selves. We are members of a vast chorus, our voices rising and falling in concert with the rhythms of life. And though the questions of how best to live together, how to balance self and society, remain ever open, ever unfolding, there is solace in knowing that we do not dance alone. Somewhere far beneath the surface, in the hidden architecture of cells, in the branching networks of forests, in the quiet exchanges of trust and care, the ballet continues. And as we drift toward sleep, we may sense, dimly but unmistakably, the gentle pull of that great choreography that binds us, one to another, across time, across space, across the endless unfolding of the living world. As our journey through the biology of cooperation gently drifts to a close, we find ourselves floating like stardust, marveling at how life weaves its threads together in quiet harmony. Let this peaceful wonder settle like a comet tail fading into the hush of space, inviting you to return for more Dreamtime tales where the mysteries of the cosmos softly unfold.